going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, I'm going to be making an elf zombie because this was supposed to be a Christmas video, but then I got sick and so it's way behind schedule, but it's fine, it's close enough. You guys have a little bit of holiday spirit left in you, right? So let's hop right into it. So for this project, I decided to use this Freaky Fusions Clawdeen doll, where it's like a blend of Clawdeen Wolf and Venus McFlytrap. And I just didn't know what I'd ever use her for because she has this kind of gross, sickly greenish skin tone, but I figured for a zombie it would be perfect. And I struggled for a really long time to get her earrings out, which I don't know why I bothered to try to keep them intact, but I just felt bad, like, ruining them, so I was trying to be careful. And then I removed her hair and used a hair dryer to heat it up and remove her head. For some reason, when I did this, the second I turned off this clip, all the power to my office turned off. I somehow flipped a breaker and then had to run back and forth dealing with the power being out. I didn't have my screwdriver that I usually have to scrape out the inside of the doll heads, and so I was fighting for my life trying to use these pliers. And then eventually my husband came upstairs and I was able to ask him, hey, where did you put my screwdriver? And even he didn't know, so it was quite an ordeal for sort of no reason. I was way angrier than I needed to be, but eventually I did get my screwdriver back and the suffering was over. Doc, I just said the suffering was over. You know what just happened? The second after I finished recording that last, like, I don't know, 10 seconds, my editing software crashed. So I think this video just might be a little bit cursed. Oh, here's me melting these gloves because I thought they would be fine. I was like, oh, I just painted my nails. Maybe I'll use these like vinyl examination gloves my roommate has to see if that will help protect my hands, because like doll heads are made out of vinyl, so acetone shouldn't melt them, right? No, it started melting through it and I was just like, oh, I hope I don't get horrible chemical burns from this reaction that's happening. So I took those off and used acetone to remove all the flocking from her head. This video really came very dangerously close to not being made. We're here now. If you're watching it, that means that I finished it and we survived, but my word. So after the whole rigmarole of getting her head prepped, I reattached it to her body and proceeded with removing her ears so I could place them in a more elfy position. You know how it goes. You've probably seen a million other people do this, but here's how I did it. Sticking with the Christmassy theme, because this, believe it or not, was supposed to be a Christmas video, as you can tell by the elf of it all. I decided to use this chunk of wrapping paper to cover up her ear holes, and I'm just like glued those down. And because things were already getting a little messy anyway, I decided to use hot glue to make a little bit of gore around her hairline. I'm going to be adding more later, and I used that same hot glue to make some gore around her missing arm. I stuck a little toothpick in there to act as a bone, and then I marked where I wanted her ears to go. That way I knew where to stick them in at. Though these dots are kind of huge for how small the needle I'm going to be using is, so it's not going to be perfect. But to get the ears ready to be stabbed into the head, I'm shortening these pins. They're just called pins, right? The ones you use for sewing to like kind of help hold fabric together. I'm using a couple of those and I'm sticking them into the base of the ear using some hot glue and just waiting for it to dry and making sure it dries straight. And once that's all cured, I stick it into her head and make sure they're even on both sides. Once they're stabbed in, I have the issue of the big gap between the ears and her head. And now usually I'd probably smooth out that transition with some clay of some kind, but I did not feel like color matching or doing things like that because the name of this project was getting it done in a timely fashion. So I decided this would be the perfect opportunity to use hot glue to smooth that transition and just like add more gore around her ears and her face to make it look like she had a big nasty head wound that is kind of dripping down. And because I still had half of those pins left over, I decided to use one of them to give her a little nose ring because I feel like she was like a little edgy and I thought it'd be cute, and so I did it. I just realized I probably sound like a grandma calling a nose ring edgy. I feel like it's probably one of the less edgy of the facial piercing options, but you know, a point of interest on her face. And speaking of her face, I'm doing her face up now. I'm putting in a layer of dark red to get that blood and gore started. Another theme of this project was I kind of bounced all over the place. I didn't do anything in order. I painted her eyeballs on, and then I immediately jumped to painting blood, and now I'm doing blood splatter, and like all the stuff I usually do at the end I'm doing now. And I don't know, I was just doing stuff. I was just doing stuff. You know, I really wanted to do a Christmas video this year, and it just really didn't happen. Now this is truly barely. Once you get to the end, we are stretching. we are stretching what Christmas means, I think, by the end. But that's up to you guys to decide, I guess. So for those of you who may be wondering if you like keep up with my other videos and the lore of my my sort of zombie apocalypse shared universe stuff. If you remember my lesbians that I made a few months ago, if you're curious if this doll fits in with that universe, I say why not? I think that'd be fun. Maybe she was like on her way, because she's a little bit of a diva by the end, and so maybe she's on her way to do like a fun festive show at the North Pole. I guess. And when the zombie apocalypse struck and she got turned and she was like, you know what, this can't stop me. Yeah, I may be a little undead now, and maybe my brains are kind of falling out, but I'm still fierce, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that's pretty iconic, you know, strong and fabulous in the face of adversity. So for this face up, I decided to give her red eyes because it seemed appropriate, and also calling back to my zombie lesbian video, which if you haven't watched that one, you should really check it out. People really liked it, and I think it's a cute video. But in that video, one of the zombie girlfriends also had red eyes, and so maybe that's just like a thing. I think most of the zombies I've made have had red eyes, and so maybe that's just like canon for what happens if you go zombie mode. And also you can see here I'm giving her I gave her green eyebrows and greenish lips, and I stick with the green eyebrows. I end up changing her lips later. That is the only other green on this whole doll. I like abandoned any sort of green and red color scheme because I was like, oh, the green is coming from her skin, but her skin is like barely green. It's like mostly brown. So I don't know. Maybe her natural hair color is green, but she dyed it, and so that's why they're like that. But anyway, let's move on to her outfit. So this outfit is going to be largely constructed out of these two different red trims that I got, I think, from my mom. I don't know. I've gotten so many like boxes of random crafts now at this point that I lose track of who's from what. But I made this skirt by gluing this little silky ruffle to the bottom of this other material, and I know that I had been kind of making a point to be good and do some sewing, but I was on a crunch, okay? I was on a crunch for this video, so everything is gonna be hot glued. I am going back to my roots. I am just hot gluing some trim onto a doll and figuring it out as I go. And you know what? We're gonna take this as like an inspirational moment that, you know, you can make something that you're happy with by using very simple methods. You know, it doesn't all have to be, you don't have to be a seamstress all the time, okay? Though it is good to push yourself and step outside of your comfort zone and learn new things. Sometimes it feels good to curl up in your comfort zone and just do a little siesta there while you can. If you're wondering why I'm painting her legs, those are going to be socks later. I painted her legs red, and I painted these shoes red, and this red paint really carried me very far for this video. And after that paint is dry, I went ahead and put some matte Mod Podge over her legs to help give it more of a different texture, I guess, a different finish, as well as make it a little bit more sturdy so it wouldn't just like flake off, especially off of her feet when I go to put her feet in her shoes later. I applied both the paint and the Mod Podge pretty thick around her toes to help fill in those grooves a little bit, to help contribute to the illusion that these are like socks over feet instead of like just red feet. I then added more of that ruffly trim around the top of the sock to also help with the illusion that these are something that are pulled over her legs. Also, I thought it was like a more interesting like silhouette than if I had just kept them smooth. I don't know, they're kind of interesting to me. I would have maybe used a different ribbon if I had it, but I think this worked just as well. Her shoes I kept just as is, and I think the difference in finishes on the paint kind of help make them stand out. And now I'm using more Mod Podge, this time glossy Mod Podge, to apply to all of her blood to give it a nice, shiny grossness to help make it look a little bit more lively, a little less dull, a little more real. Now I'm prepping the yarn for her hair. Originally I was going to use like a greenish yarn, but like that looked a little bit too weird to me, and then I was gonna, you know, maybe use a red yarn. I was like, that's way too much red. So I decided to go with this like off-white color, and I'm just hot gluing the strands to her head as is, and just doing it that way for now. I'm going to make some changes to this later, but for now, this is how we're doing it. I decided to have her hair be kind of just growing straight out of that wound. Like, she kind of got a little bit scalped, so like any hair that's in front of that wound would just be kind of gone. And because of the light color of the yarn, the hot glue kind of camouflages into it. I'm able to just kind of glue it straight. You know how usually you'll like kind of glue it one way then flip it over? I don't really have to do that here, and I'm using the glue to make it more like that wound is caked up on top of the hair a little bit. And to help further sell that idea, I'm adding more red paint, more blood onto her hair to make it look like it's all kind of caked up there and gross. After I finished her hair, I decided that her outfit still needed some zhuzhing up, and so I'm adding some of this gold trim to various places on her outfit to help bring in that festiveness, because I feel like a straight up red outfit is not enough to be like spirited and Christmassy. So I'm like, oh, maybe some gold will help, because red and gold is like also Christmassy, right? That's some holiday cheer, and also it helped make the outfit look less boring. And I really wasn't happy with how naked this arm was, and I didn't really know what else to do with it, so I'm deciding to give it a similar treatment that I gave her legs, and I'm painting it red to create the illusion that she's wearing a little bit of a glove. And I went ahead and I put some matte Mod Podge on this as well to give it that same finish. Once that was all dry, I went ahead and also added some of that gold trim to the top of the glove to make it look like, once again, like it's pulled over the arm versus just painted onto it. And I felt like the little red ruffly trim would have been a little too intense for this. Here I'm making a little bow out of some red yarn that I had lying on my desk, because I felt like she really needed like an accessory on her head, because she was just looking a little bit too plain up there. And so I made this bow, and I'm gluing a little pin to the center of it so I could place it on her head. After I placed the bow, I still wasn't really happy with how things were going. She's just looking a little rough and ragged. And so I decided to go ahead and unravel the yarn. And I feel like that just like helped fluff it up and make her look a little cuter, a little less like, I don't know how to even describe what the vibe was before, but I think it's much better now. And I also decided to go back in and add some chalk pastel around her eyes to help add some depth there, because before it was just looking a little too flat and unfinished for me. And this is another part of me doing things way out of order. Like, I thought her face was done forever ago, and I'm doing the chalk pastel now as I did before. It's all weird. Everything was really weird about this project. But I'm going to take this moment to say that if you watched this far and you liked this video, consider liking it. It really helps me out a lot. And if you want to see more things from me, consider subscribing. I have a lot of fun things planned. And if you have any thoughts, feelings, onions, let me know in the comments below. But only if you're nice to me. Please be nice to me. I cry very easily. The last thing that I need to do for this project was change her lip color to have it better fit the file vibe. And with that, she's complete. And here are the file results. You know, in the end, I think she came out cute and fun. I've never done a head wound like this before, and so it's really interesting to see how that played out. That's it for this video. I hope to see y'all next time. Love you, bye! You guys hear how creaky my floor is? I hope that picked up, otherwise I'm